Welcome back to another Recruiting Essentials episode here at Prep Baseball. I am Shooter Hunt, Vice President of Scouting at the Prep Baseball, joined by, again, one of my favorites in the industry. He's been all over, but head coach now, head ball coach at Troy, Skylar Meade. Skylar, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm fired up to talk shop with you as always.
And talking shop we do on a regular basis. I love our interactions, especially at Lake Point. The amount of times we've had like kind of side field, end of the day discussions, and those are some of the best, right? This player, who you played against, those are some of my favorites. So thank you for always putting up for me and entertaining my thoughts at all times.
Well, I enjoy those too. I know sometimes we get on tangents that have nothing to do with baseball, but that's what's so great. I mean, you and I talked the other day, there in DC, just about, obviously my connection with Drew Locascio and Shawn and so many other guys in your org. But what I think maybe people don't realize is like, we're all like friends too, aside from the baseball part.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, we all love talking like we're going to do on here, talking ball. But some of those, we've been at the field way too long discussions where you can actually just like talk to someone and survive while still doing your job and watching players. I think people don't have any clue how important that is, kind of in that summer survival in those dog days.
The fraternity, the unity of the baseball world. And it's something I'm going to start off with, like just how small the baseball world can be. You played in college, went to the College World Series, part of a Louisville program, which I always go back to like when I was transferring Louisville. I think Coach McDonald and Coach Lemonis had just moved over to Louisville, and Louisville was still in the Big East at that point. They were not the, hey, we're on TV every week. This is like, I'm sure the guys who are there right now that they don't know what was built. Like it was not the same. Because I don't even know. I'm sorry, Coach Lem. I don't think I even responded to your text message when I was transferring there. But that whole crew, where Coach McDonald, his coaching tree has been incredible. Obviously, Chris Lemonis goes over to Indiana, Mississippi State, now a national champion. But even beyond that, the guys you played with, so many great coaches have come from that tree. What was it about your experience at Louisville that allowed you to have, like, just seems like great people were in that program at the time?
There's no doubt. Well, two things. Number one, I found this so funny when I first started coaching. I was at Eastern Illinois, and we recruited Chicago a lot. And I remember when people would be like, "Hey, you played at Louisville. That's so cool." And I remember thinking, that's not what people said our first couple of years. Now if you were a basketball or football guy, they were excited about it. I used to always laugh because in Chicago, especially as time went on with what Lemonis and Eric Snyder has both done in the recruiting world with Illinois players, they've gotten the creme de la creme. But people always thought Louisville was cool, which for me, I certainly have a lot of pride in that, being from there and playing there. But it was always just interesting because it just all changed so fast when Coach McDonald got there, and what Mac's done and his tree's crazy. I mean, you talk about guys I played with, or maybe I missed by a year, like a Cheeseborough, played with Jimmy Bellinger, Justin
Dominguez?
Dominguez I was with for years, who has done his thing back at Miami. One that people I think maybe forget about. I don't even know, maybe if you ever would have interacted with him based on kind of the timing of you coming up too. But, Dan Burton was a guy I played with. Dan Burton got hired on a whim by Eric Bakich at Maryland. It was his recruiting guy for 3 years and really helped get, you look at the great players that end up being at Maryland, Mike Shawn, Lamont Wade, Lowe, all those guys, like, Dan Burton absolutely grinded for a couple of years with Coach Bakich and got those guys. And so it's really cool that there are Louisville guys everywhere. I do have tremendous pride in that. But I think it's a testament to what Coach McDonald does, what his system is, what his beliefs are. And honestly, I think in the world of baseball, I know I've said it a lot, but I don't care. It's my real belief. I don't think there's a better motivator in the entire world of college baseball, but not just college baseball. I think college athletics. I think Dan McDonald has a special, unique quality that a lot of us, if you're fortunate enough to sit in a locker room, which I was for 9 months with him, 10 months, 8, 9, 10, whatever it was, you kind of just get motivated by that. But it kind of helps you get together and get your craft, like really just own what you want to be in terms of a coach.
It's incredible. I also say Chris Cates was from Louisville because Chris Cates throws such great BP that he could find my barrel, and I always appreciate that fact, that him down there in Tampa. When we first met, so you're Eastern Illinois, Middle Tennessee, you've kind of paid your dues. You were talking about you were hired to coach how many months after being in Omaha?
So we finished in like June, like 21st or 23rd, and I got hired like right at the beginning of July
Oh,
of
wow.
2007. So I was 22 years old. I had players, older than me as I went in there and started my my coaching journey at 22.
And so we meet. You're at Michigan State, which is awesome. You do a great job there. You head over to South Carolina, which step into the big dogs, right? The SEC. You're recruiting at a high level. You guys doing a good job. Even more people. You were Trip Couch, Mike Current, Mark Kingston, obviously. Then the chance arises to be a head coach. What was that like, stepping into the role where like, hey, I'm in charge now? And you still like, you'll probably look the same age forever. Like, you always look young. Every time I see you, you're in good shape. You're wearing nice kicks. You got good stuff working. What was it like stepping in and being like, hey, I'm leading this ship now. I'm going to put my mark on it. What did you think going in there?
I mean, I think, look, I'm a confident person. I believe in everything that, I'm going to do from a coaching perspective or presenting things to people. But you still don't know. Like, if you're just being totally honest, like, you don't know, like, okay, how's this going to resonate? Or, okay, I think I'm going to do things, or I know I'm going to do things this way. How is that going to flow? How are people going to react? And I just think you have to be very convicted in your beliefs, which, I know we are. I was very fortunate. The day I got the, job, I knew that Ben Wolgamont, my associate head coach, who we've been, connected like this since we coached in the fall of 2011 and the 2012 season at EIU. Like, so I had a kind of a comrade who I've known forever. That helped, I think, part of the adjustment process. Certainly, like the rest of my staff that I've had and have had coaches already move on, and one with the Braves, one's director of pitching with the Phillies. Like Ethan, who was with Landon, who was with me the last couple of years, now pitching coach at Toledo. Okay. Like, we've had guys like move on, but we just have really good people in our building. And so it's made it where every day when you're messaging or when you have things like arise, I think it's made it nothing's easy in this world of baseball,
Yeah.
whether your job, my job, anything, but like, I never have felt that different. As odd as that seems, 3.5 years into it, I just feel like it's nothing different other than I just have a different title, and we're representing a school that I'm insanely passionate about in Troy University. But like, in terms of like how you feel or like what it is, like, I felt the same as a person July 14th as I did July 15th of 2021 when I got the job. I just had a different title. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just truly how I believed.
No, it does, and I think you're always learning stuff. I keep a lot of the stuff we're doing on here, right, is recruiting. So we're gonna talk about that here. But you kind of changed and more so mature in scouting, I guess. And you must have been really hard. Like, you go to Eastern right after playing. Hey, now I have to evaluate some talent at a younger level. Each stop. What have you learned, kind of at each stop to where you are now? From a recruiting sense, like, what are you looking at? Each place you've been, like, has its own niche, right? You're South Carolina, back to back national championships. They have all these banners, right? The history of that program is a different level than, hey, Michigan State, still a brand name. They still can great uniforms. Always loved Michigan State's uniforms. It must be the green. But each stop, what have you learned, and how have you developed to where you are now at Troy from the recruiting side of things?
Man, that's a great question. I'll give you a condensed answer, and I'll go one level more. I worked every camp when I was at Louisville, especially my last year. And I remember Dan McDonald, and this is part of his greatness. I'd sit back there and he'd be like, "What do you see? Is this guy any good? You got to take notes. He's got bat speed. Who cares that he yanked it foul? He can get, like, he would just say little things." And it wasn't like he was like attempting to give me a full tutorial about how to do his job, or that he was as insanely smart as he is, but it was like those little nuggets gave me an initial perspective. Then I get to Eastern Illinois, and Shawn Lyons, who was my, he was our top assistant and recruiting coordinator and had recruited great players. We won championship my first 2 years at EIU, and he had gotten all those players, he and the head coach, Jimmy Schmitz. But Shawn used to just he taught me everything. He taught me, we had a 1 to 5 system, which I'm sure no one really uses now, but that's how we rated our players. 5 is the greatest player in the history. 1 meant he just won the player. And, how do we evaluate? What are we looking at? One thing he always used to tell me that I still say, he'd be like, hey, I don't care that guy throws 85. He throws a hard breaking ball at 80, 81. That means the velocity will come. So, but we
Yes.
were very regionalized at EIU, and that's how I initially got really around PBR was, working everywhere in the state of Illinois to try to find players. So that was kind of our deal. We had to be good in small towns in Illinois. That was part of EIU. I get to Middle Tennessee State. Now you're in SEC country. You're down the street from Vandy. You got Tennessee 2 hours and 40 minutes down the road. We all know the schools that are also there, but you're not the name brand in that state, but you're in a good conference. We were in the Sun Belt my first year, and then we moved to Conference USA, but it was also a place that had history.
Yeah.
So there was not people maybe that grew up saying it's MTSU or bust, but there was people that knew the program. And, you look at, what had gone on historically there, you had a lot of support, and it was kind of the first time where there was maybe more fan engagement than I had gotten to see at Eastern Illinois. But we also had to be really good at the JUCOs, but I also still wanted to, and heck, we signed some really good players from the Illinois JUCOs, getting kids from Wisconsin. Nate Hoffman was a kid from the GRB Rays. We got ended up being an all-conference kid, played in junior college. Ryan Aper, we signed out of Lincoln Land. His mom had a job in Murfreesboro, and I recruited him at camps to EIU. We get him. He ends up being National Player of the Year, signs in the 6th round with the Marlins. So he never played there. So good job recruiting, but he never got there. Who cares? But we started to, my first touch of recruiting in the state of Georgia and being astonished by the level of talent. Like, I stumbled into 9th, 13th round. Curtis Terry, I didn't know who it was. I go to a high school game. Curtis Terry ends up being a 13th rounder.
Yeah.
He played the big leagues. And I remember seeing him going, Coach, can you give me his number? That kid looks like he's awesome. He's like, yeah, he has like a one random offer. So that was kind of the next evolution for me. Then you get to Michigan State, right? I go back north. So you're in the cold, but you're also at the time, the most recognizable brand in terms of the logo and everything in college sports with Michigan State. First time I'd ever been at a place that, number one, was very academic, but also people in that state do grow up saying, I want to play at Michigan State. So that was the first time where you could go to a home in Holland, Michigan and say, hey, look, this is our offer. We love you. We want you to be part of, the Spartans. And you look up and they got Spartan helmets and baseballs, and you're like, oh, I think we're going to get this guy. This is the dream. And the Big Ten brand is great. You play the conference tournament in Minnesota and then Omaha the last 2 years I was in there. And we had our program was, winning lots of games. We traveled really nice.
Yeah.
First time for me. And as I'll never forget, in Arizona in 2015, first game I ever coached against New Mexico, I look in the dugout, and I was not in charge of food that year, but the spread of Chick-fil-A and this, like, what was going on, I'm like, we have real money here, but Michigan State, you had to make sure they were solid academically to get them in. Then you get to South Carolina and you go, okay, we can get in the door with anyone. Doesn't mean listen, people always say it must have been so easy to recruit South Carolina. No, it's not.
No.
Because if they're good, right, that means Mississippi State likes them, and LSU and Texas A&M and Tennessee, and you can go on and on and on. But you do have credibility, right? You have credibility immediately. Now you have to earn it with your work and everything. South Carolina is one of the unique SEC programs that has history of junior college players doing well, especially guys from the state of Florida. We were able to do a good job in some, Kansas JUCOs, Illinois JUCOs. Andy Peters from John A. Logan, top prospect, gets hurt, ends up being a top 10 rounder. Brandon Jordan was a guy from the middle of the country that ended up being a top 10 rounder. Thomas Farr, JUCO, top 5 round. And we could go, up and down, but we were able to get in there with JUCOs, but you could still get high-level high school kids from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, et cetera. It was also the first time I dealt with, like, hey, man, we're going to go to Owen White's house in the spring of 18, and we're going to hang with the family, and we're going to tell him why he needs to come to college. And then Owen White starts on 96, and he becomes a second round.
I remember him. He was one of my favorites.
He's a dude. So I just got traded to the Reds. So,
oh, yeah. Good place to be.
All your good work goes out the door because he's signing. Like, there's nothing you can do. It's 1.6, 1.7 million. You're not going to get him. So but I learned so much in going through those battles and obviously the grind that it takes to get those elite players to decide to maybe turn down money and come to school. And then that brings me here to Troy. And, what we've done here at Troy, it doesn't make us perfect or special, but we've gone about it a very unique way. I've said it a multitude of times, but when we got here to Troy, we had a vision for what our roster wanted to look like in a lot of ways. But how we were going to attack it, Troy had 3 states on the roster our first season, 2022. We have 24 states. We have an Australian. We have a Canadian. In 1 year, we got to 23 states. So we went across the country, right? Our first, our 23 teams, so our first kind of grouping that we were able to get in with high school, junior college, and a couple portal. You looked out there and 8 of the 9 guys on the field were not from the state of Alabama. And that's no disrespect to the state of Alabama. We got one of the best players, 2 of the best players in the country, Peyton Watson, Brooks Bryant. They're from Alabama. So we can get great players, but we had to go everywhere. And that's what we did. But that's what we've all done. Myself, between myself, Ben, Coach Godwin on my staff, Ethan previous to him, Riley previous to him. And then now I have Ryan Feynman as my recruiting coordinator, who has West Coast ties. So we can get in even more places that maybe we hadn't a lot, although we still had gotten West Coast guys before. But we go everywhere. But for us, we know we're going to have to battle Auburn and Alabama. And if we battle them, we're probably going to lose. That's not dissing our program. I think we're pretty awesome, but that's a hard beat. It's a hard beat to beat Mississippi State or Ole Miss when they come in. Tennessee, we've lost players to all of these programs. Florida, right? Like all these players. But we have to recruit the kids hard. We have to recruit them right. And guess what? If it doesn't work out the first time, we may be there the next time around. And we have multiple players that have fallen into that. And then I think the last thing that we've done, we've been convicted on people that we see in the high school level, and we've not gone crazy with our numbers of high school classes. Right, this class that's on campus that'll start practicing out here in a couple days. It's a great class, but it's 8 kids. It's just not a lot of kids. The one before was 7. The one before that was 7. The one before that we kind of walked into was like 8. Like it's not that many because we have to do things in different ways. But Brooks Bryant, Peyton Watts, Jimmy. We got Jimmy from Chicago, who I always love talking about. We have Perry Bland. We have Noah Thigpen throwing 95 high school. I could go down the list of these guys. Like they're really good players, but we also saw them. We were convicted, and we took our shot with them.
Has it helped you? Because came from South Carolina, and you were at South Carolina during the age of like this is early recruitment. It was an arms race. We have to beat guys versus evaluate. We are going to acquire and almost evaluate later. What is it like now where the process is slowed down? Do you think it helps you? Because you guys really do a great job evaluating. Slows down a little bit. We're going to get more looks at this guy. Understand we're all over the place. You have good connections. Is it important for that evaluation period to see, hey, this guy's a freshman, sophomore, kind of tracking his progress? Is that something that you guys do?
Absolutely. Well, I used to kind of get ridiculed from time to time when I was at South Carolina. I mean, we got 3 of the first 25 commitments in the country.
I remember it well.
And my job was the young guys. Coach Couch, who I love, Coach Couch would be like, you can have those young guys, Sky. But I took a lot of pride in it. And when people would get on me about it, sometimes in jest and sometimes I think they were serious, I would always say, well, guess what? If I don't work real hard to get this guy, he's going to LSU. He was going to go to Mississippi State. He had offers from them. They're talking to, at the time, Nolan Kane or Cheese or whomever. Whoever it was at these different schools that are working just as hard as us, they were going to go there. So I'm going to try to win that battle. And by the way, the one thing that I do think with the young guys, and this is just my opinion, but I know you are as great of a assessor of players as there is. I'm not just saying that because we're on here. When you tell me something, I believe it to be true. Sometimes it's not hard to evaluate the great young kid. And now, don't get me wrong. I think the young arm can sometimes be difficult. If a kid's throwing 95 at like 14.
I'm with you. Arms are like really hard.
The arm is different. But the position player, when you go, like I'll give it, when I saw Tamar Johnson and he just turned 14 when I was recruiting Michael Braswell and Bubba Chandler, with Team Halo and Curtis George.
I think I was at the game in Fort Myers with Tripp watching.
Yeah. And I had told Tripp I've never loved a player more than Tamar. But that's not hard.
Yeah.
He's special. Did I know he's going to sign for $8 million? Okay, maybe I didn't know that at the time, but he's a special player. His coach says he's special. His teammates say he's special. That's not hard to assess, in my opinion. Now, arms are a different deal. You want to see them advance and progress, and do they get better? Do they stay healthy? But to your second part of that question, for us, the improvement curve is the biggest thing for us.
Yeah.
But we also have a system of things that we value with our offensive players, just their ability or inability to swing and miss, be able to work counts, to be able to do different things from a positional standpoint. From an arms perspective, we have a system, we believe, with our weight room that we really think, and it sounds cliche, get strong, you'll throw harder, but we have some things that we do that are different, that we really wholeheartability believe if the guy has, this certain work ethic, this certain movement pattern, this certain arm path, this certain, ability to throw a breaking ball a certain way, but maybe doesn't have the fastball velo. Here's a way that we think we can continue to develop them at a rapid pace.
Is that so? Talk a little more about the pitching stuff, because I'm passionate about it. We've had some pitching guys on here, and velocity, I think so many parents, like, yes, there is kind of a threshold for a lot of these things, right? Like, there's certain points, like if you're at South Carolina, this is where you kind of have to be, but it has more to do with, in my head, in 3 years, I can see where this is going. How much more important are like those movement patterns? Like, hey, velocity's on the back burner. How do you move well? You talked about firm breaking balls and just like what you've seen in the past and how that development will come. What are some of the things that you're looking for when you walk into a game for just a pitcher, whether it's body language, the way he moves, the way he warms up?
I think it starts when you actually watch them play catch and long toss, right?
Okay.
Are they able to land clean? Is the front foot foot and leg flying open? Like, are they able to be stacked? Are they controlling their front half? I always like the demo when I say, but like those guys that can control their front half and then get the arm on time, they create deception, but they also tend to have the ability to increase extension, in my opinion. And data would agree with me on this.
Yeah.
They end up improving their extension. So therefore, they may throw 91, but it plays right. Whereas you get the guy that throws 94 and it's just dead zone laser show,
Yes.
But when, I want to see, look, you got to perform. Give us the high school guy that's 85, 88, but dots, performs, has a multitude of pitches over the guy that's 91, 94 in high school. And it's a walk fest. And I know that, listen, and we're all guilty of it. If I was working for you guys or I was working at some of the other places that rank players, I get why that player may be ranked higher. And sometimes they hit.
Mm-hmm.
They sometimes hit, right? Joe Boyle. Joe Boyle was a guy that never performed forever, and he was always high ranked, right? And I don't know Joe Boyle. I don't know him personally, but you'd always watch, and it'd be a walk show. But then you go, okay, he's throwing like 101. If it does ever click, and guess what? He made it to the big leagues. So like the ratings were right. Like I was wrong. Okay. Like they projected he could be good. But I do think that guy that you see the performance and the presence that comes along with that confidence and the ability where they've had to pitch, they've had to learn to throw their breaking ball or slider, they've had to learn to change up. Those guys, when they get that maturity, they start to get a little bit of the man muscles and they throw the ball suddenly 90, 93, 94. They can become a real pitcher that you can trust rather than kind of the show pony that's going to flash the radar gun, but everyone's holding their breath in the dugout. And oh, by the way, those guys never become starters in high level baseball.
No. And it's funny to talk about, because for those parents who are listening to this, getting great info here from Skylar Meade at Troy, but it's almost like two different sports, right? You're evaluating for the pro, like MLB. Joe Boyle, I'm sure that the Notre Dame staff still thinks like, oh, like he probably drove them nuts. Like, is he walking guys? But to a pro guy, hey, there's intrinsic value here. To the data department, oh, there's a pitch we can use. Well, to the staff in the ACC, hey, we got on Friday night, we can't burn our bullpen. So if you go 3 or 4 innings, we're screwed for the weekend. And like, those are things we need to win in this short, yes, we're going to develop, but like this short window, we got to get some dubs, man. Like I understand that the IVB that you're pulling down at is crazy high and you got some outlier talent, but you haven't thrown the thing remotely near the strike zone in 3 weeks. And we're just getting dominated in the bullpen. Like that's something I think more parents, kids be conscious of. And you talked about it, and we're giving some light to, hey, you throw strikes, you compete, you have multiple pitches in the zone, hey, we'll develop some other stuff. I think that's probably something you speak to your kids about, why you guys have been so good. Everybody else chasing radar guns and famous names. You guys are facing talent and winners.
Well, it's funny, and I never even got to coach this guy. So this story I'm telling because I have real info. Because I talk to the strength coach there all the time. I talk to, of course, to the coaches that coach him. But
Hmm.
and this kid was a junior college kid. But James Hicks was a kid that we recruited out of junior college, and I always remember he didn't walk a guy like his first 60 innings. Right, it was like insane command. I mean, I'm telling you, the command was through there. But we would get the videos, and this was during COVID when you couldn't get out. And it was like 88, 89, 87,
Hmm.
90. But we watched the arm, the path, the ability to actually command, the ability to be trusted, what the coaches said or whatever. So he ends up, going to South Carolina. I go to Troy, and I remember he actually got hurt, which is unfortunate, but he gets hurt. So he not only South Carolina, Billy Anderson, the weight room, like is
Yep.
just so on point, but he got hurt, but he got to really get after it. That guy comes back. He's a 93, 95 power sink, but the command's still there. Like this guy in pro ball, like has a chance to really fly, but it goes to, and I know I'm using a JUCO guy example, but I think it
No,
all
you're good.
applies. You're going, even that guy at 20 years old, you go, I think that guy, when he gets in here, it's going to explode through the roof. And you see that with guys all the time, all the
Yeah.
time. And to me, that's the exciting part too. Like, having those debates with people. And I mean, of course, I've done it now long enough. I have a Rolodex of a million names where you kind of debate like, hey, like, I think this guy's going to be really good. And someone's like, it's light, and then 5 years later, when it's not light, you're like, hey,
Well,
I told you.
and we talk about a lot internally, right? With our ranking system, which we do, right there, you have to have, some high upside guys, right? When we post it, why is this guy ranked so high? Well, like he's got some unteachableness that if things click, these guys below him, yes, their floor is high, but like they just can't get to where he's going to be. But from the college side, like, hey, we're looking at this, especially what you guys have done there. Like, one, playing time's hugely important, right? You got to get at bats, you got to get innings. If you don't get those things, it's hard to develop, especially at the collegiate level. But betting on those athletes who can move well, especially on the mound, is something that I'm always interested in, right? Like, yes, this guy's at 92, but like you're saying, this dude's at 87. He's ripping off a banger here. There's some guys in this. Reed Worley's a kid in Georgia that we love. Reed Worley was not huge velo, but like moved super well. Could really, really spin the baseball. Had good changeup, multiple pitches for a strike, starter profile. Guess what? Simply feeding him cheeseburgers and milkshakes, he'll probably put on 10 pounds. But imagine we get some lean meats in him and he actually does a weight program. Hey, now, well, I guess the question I pose to our guys, I wonder if you do the same, is he's okay. He's 88 to 92. What if he's 92 to 95? Do you like him more? Is that something you like? Is that something you do?
Oh yeah. I mean, we do it all the time. Well, and I always, sometimes sarcastically, but you go, well, if he just dominated but he didn't hit that. Imagine what it'll be when he does, and heck, I know I probably shouldn't talk about players who are on another school, but this guy ain't leaving the program he's in for. But look at Charlie Foster at Miss State.
Winner.
We offered Charlie Foster as a junior, and he was awesome to us. He was 82, 84, touched a 5 when we saw him. But we go, this guy's going to be amazing. And then, as things transpire and, he ends up there at Miss State. And I've talked to those guys. The guy's 92, 95. He's going to be one of the best freshmen in the country. And he's a winner. He's an awesome kid. I'm rooting like heck for that kid. But when we were recruiting him and other people, we weren't the only ones. But at that time, we go, he's 82, 84, 85. Like,
yeah.
And by the way, 9 months for that, he was 76. So, I mean,
You're tracking that.
Well, like Luke Little. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
For people on here who may not know Luke Little, and he banged up his knee last year, so missed most of the year with the Cubs. But he's pitched in the big leagues for 2 years, very partial of one of those years, but pitched great with the Cubs, made it to the big leagues at 22 years old. Luke Little's a kid that threw like 81 in high school and made a jump his senior year and was touching like 90. Horrifically unclean delivery, but he was 6'8", like 250. Yeah. And he goes to San Jack, and next thing you know, he's throwing 97. We sign him at Carolina. Then he becomes famous during COVID. People may remember he was the one throwing in the gym, hitting 105.
Oh, yeah.
And
viral.
Whether that was real or not, I don't know. But the reality is he's throwing really hard. And just like 2 years ago, the guy could barely break 80, but he had a big body. He had work ethic. There was a pathway to clean him up that he put in the work, and some other people around him put in the work. And next thing you know, you got a guy throwing the ball 100 miles an hour, and he ends up being a fourth rounder, and he's in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And he's a dude in the big leagues. Like they like him. So I just think you gotta be convicted in your belief on a guy. We're all gonna miss. You're gonna
Yeah.
miss. I've missed a million times, but there are generally predictors that I think go into it, that I think maybe people would miss sometimes.
What about like so you talk about those things you missed, like the makeup of players. How do you balance, or what is it? How does it start as the parents? And then how do you balance it with, hey, we want a good kid, buttoned up kid, but we also need this guy to have a little something in his neck where he's going to go out there and not back down.
Well, I think number one, sometimes you can find that out by like what they do when they're not in full baseball. So do they play another sport?
Mhm.
I've been a huge fan of the pitcher that plays basketball, the position player that plays football. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's kind of a good blend. I know it doesn't always work that way, but
Same.
I think that one-on-one battle that happens in pitching is kind of similar to basketball. Just that, hey, I'm about to stick it to you right here, and I think
Yeah.
mentality can spill over, but it's also safer on the arms, the shoulders, the wrist, whatever. But you get that position player that's not afraid to, explode through second on a double, that's going to be able to lay out athletically for a ball to make a catch. And then obviously has the strength that comes from that football training. That's number one. But I think the other part, and it's really simple, man. Just think about like when you have an interaction, phone, in person, in passing with a kid, and you just go, oh, wow, they have like something the way they carry themselves, whether it's
Yeah.
an aura of confidence, whether it's personality, whether it's like, hey, this is weird. Everyone's flocking to that kid and they've known him for 2 hours. And you see that a lot, you know? Um,
Yes.
Brooks Bryan for us, he's an amazing player, but one of the greatest qualities is every team he's on, everybody kind of flocks to him. They just do.
He's that
He
dude.
he was at USA for like a day, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna have a video crew follow around Brooks. Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." They're like, "Yeah, everyone kind of seems to hang around him," and I just think that that's a quality that some people have. Some people are maybe they learn how to handle that, but like I think you're kind of blessed with that or not. Um, but I really like the kids that can handle business too. Hey, I need you to send a transcript. Absolutely, coach. I'll send that to you in 10 minutes when I get out of class. At minute 11, they got it to you, right? They have a little wherewithal about what they're trying to work on. I tell this many times. I called a kid one time. I was kind of fringy on recruiting him, and this kid was an elite runner. I'm talking 6'2", 5", like it was
Mm.
legit runner. And so I asked the first question to the kid. I said, "Hey, what are you working on, man? Off season, I know there's things that you want to get better at. Like, give me the one or two. Like, what's the big focus point?" And the person, his first response, I'm really trying to work on my speed. And I'm going, okay, thanks, man. And I stopped recruiting the kid. I did because I told me he had no self awareness. You don't
Yeah.
need to work on your speed. You're like Michael Johnson. You're like
Yeah.
Usain Bolt on a baseball field. Like, I don't need you to work on your speed. You should probably work on hitting or sticking the ball better or being better at reads. And I don't know what all it was, but I was kind of like, I'm out because
The warm and fuzziness.
he either doesn't know or he's giving me a canned, not legitimate answer. And either way, that's not going to probably work for me or for us. And so that kid's not going to be, not going to be a fit. But I think those kids that you get that feeling of honesty and, they're willing to say, hey, I do need to get better at this, but I also know that I'm really good. Like those guys they really connect with me. I know I'm speaking kind of selfishly on that, but like in our whole program, the rest of my coaching staff, like those are the people that we look for.
I always love that when I talk to guys, and all you recruiters don't really talk to each other about the kid who you're going after, but like I will get a conversation like, oh, I love that kid. He's nails. He's coming to our, like, I think we're going to get him, stuff like that. Usually I can tell like this kid's got some feel where like he's talking to each person like in the right way. He's not like off putting. And like that definitely happens. The phone calls to coaches where it's like, hey, this guy may not be a fit for us. Cause I do think, especially in college baseball, more so than professional, like a lot of how well you blend with your team will dictate your success. You are around those people so much, and you're so tied into the program that if you just don't fit in, or like you just can't make friends that easy? Like it will be difficult for you. Is that something that you consider as well?
Dude, you're so right. If people are listening, I don't think anyone has any clue how important that is to your success. I mean, look, in professional baseball, like you're really probably not a team till you're in the big leagues, and even there's a lot of things that are going on. But
Oh
like,
yeah.
you're kind of your own individual entity, and I know you or anyone that plays in professional baseball, they're going to meet people that they become connected and friends with. Of course, that's the nature of human interaction. But like
Mhm.
in college baseball, um, like that connectivity, that ability to have people root for you, that ability to not want to screw up or not give your all because you know you're letting down some people that really like believe in you, that are really genuinely rooting for you. If you don't have people doing that in your program, then you are not probably the type of teammate that you think that you are or you strive to be.
Yeah.
And you can feel a dugout. I could give you a player every year I've coached, 17 years of games, and we'll have guys that we'll figure out who it is soon this year. But when you and let's just say on the mound, why does a whole different mojo or emotion come from that dugout? Why is there a feeling of it? Because he may not have the best stuff. He may not be like the dude, but when he's on the mound, everyone has a way that they just a certain juice, if you will, that is created from it. Um, and so I, and that comes from just being able to intertwine with other people. And I think it's harder than ever, man. Like I get mad. This sounds like a different tangent, but like I'm just astonished sometimes, And look, our team, we talk about it, we work on it. I got a PowerPoint that I'm doing on my computer before you and I hopped on here, where we're reiterating our core values and some of the things that we do. But it's like guys don't even just, hey man, like you want to do this later? Hey, you guys want to go hit? Hey, I'm not going to be staring at my phone in a circle of four people and we're all looking down at our phone. And look, I use my phone. My phone's right here. So
Yeah.
my phone's not far away. However, when it's time to be in the moment, it's time to be in the moment. And I think that's really hard. But I think the guys that do that in this day and age have a leg up because they feel like they're being paid attention, or the other people go, that guy's really paying attention to what I say, what I feel, what I think. And it gives them that leg up. And that's something I always try to hold myself accountable. I'm sure my wife would disagree from time to time, but I know we have to have our phone, we have to use it and all that, but like, can you sometimes just not have it, interact, watch what's going on? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I've been trying to do that with my kids. Put it down and let them know you have my undivided attention. If I utilize your rules here though, I don't know if I'd ever actually be in the moment at an event because I'm just like definitely the future games. Like I don't know if I'm in the moment. I'm just on my phone the whole time.
Well,
Uh,
hey, and it's funny. I think sometimes people too, it's like, I think there's a difference. And look, I've caught myself sometimes you're like, you try to be in the moment, but it's like, I should probably take that call. My athletic director's called me twice now. I probably should like not feel bad. So like, don't get me wrong. There's like a yin and yang to that. And look, when especially, I mean, you at the futures games, you're an animal running around and you're sending a tweet and you want to say hello to me or make fun of one of our buddy. Like, it's a skill that we all kind of have to master. I
yeah.
think people in the world of baseball are the best multitaskers that there are. I believe that. I know I'm in that world, so this sounds self-serving, but baseball people are resourceful. They figure it out. They can do anything and everything at the same time. But as
And
a whole, though, it is funny that people struggle a lot of times to connect because they're just staring at their phones.
And not only that, that you talk about the baseball world, like the ability to hand juggle multiple things. Like I always think when you think somebody's not watching, they may be watching. Like the amount of things that where I've caught you, like, hey, right, there's 4 fields on each side at Lake Point where you know exactly what's going on behind you. You're watching this guy, but like you are very aware of what that guy's doing. So like somebody who's always watching, to all you kids out there, like you never know one who is watching. Somebody is always watching. So bring it every day. You never know when that lightning in a bottle is going to be there. Let me ask you about one more thing, just about being recruited, like how to be seen. You talked about you have 20 plus states on your roster. What are the best ways to get in contact with Troy? Should I be sending, if I'm a prospective recruit, hey, I'm entertaining this, should I be sending an email? Should I be sending DMs? When is too much? Am I being kind of a full presser doing too much here? What are the things that you need to get on a kid, I guess?
Yeah, I think number one, I don't think there's anything wrong with that DM or that email. Like, hey,
Mhm.
look, I'm playing at, I'm at Lake Point Field 13 at 11 o'clock on,
Make it easy.
Look, to make it easy, but also, if that kid, I know sometimes in a DM, you kind of already know what they are on Twitter,
Yeah.
but at the same time, that person, you can go in there and check. Look, I've done this a million times. You might be like, man, I don't know so and so, but that's kind of a clean arm. Then you go, oh, he's with this group. Let me call this coach. What do you got?
Hmm.
Right. And the coach might be like, hey, man, I actually think that kid's going to be pretty good. Like, if you're able to see, I would check it out. Like, now look, he might tank. It might not go well, but there may be something that we like or that makes us come back another time. Um, and this isn't a plug for Troy or anything, but like, I do think camps hold or showcase, whatever you want to call it, they hold most massive value too. Over 50% of the high school kids that we have signed over the last 3 years have come to our events.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a validating. Sometimes we've had, the kid on the phone, like, look, man, we're right here. We like you. If you come to this, we need to be around you for like 8 hours and see how you interact. You talk about being a teammate. That's a huge thing. I remember at Michigan State, there was a kid that we were going to recruit. He came to the camp and it didn't go well. He did not interact well. And by 10 o'clock, the event started at 9. At 10, we're like, we're out on that guy. And we
Send
weren't.
them to Ann Arbor. Go.
Yeah. but I think there's nothing wrong with reaching out, and don't get me wrong. Like, does it need to be, 365 days a year? No. I mean, yes, that overkill. Sure. But at the same time, like, informing, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a coach and you're complaining that someone's being consistent with the information, that they're just spoon feeding you, that is making your life easier, to me, they're out of touch, because
Yeah.
you need to have that. But I also think if that kid has done his homework, which I always advise, like, you need to do your homework on the program, no matter what the program is. But if they've done their homework and there's connection pieces, it's never bad to utilize that, just like anyone does in the job world, But if somebody's like from South Carolina, right, but they really like Troy, they think we're a good fit, and they go, man, he was in South Carolina. Hey, to my summer coach, hey, do you know, Coach Meade? Yeah, of course. I know him all the time. I just saw him the other day in DC. Well, I was really trying to connect with them and see kind of where they're at. Well, have that coach make a call, because
Yeah.
that's how this thing works. If I know you have seen a guy, I'm going to be like, hey, shooter, like, have you seen this guy? Like, what do you think? Right. I've told the stories of some of the guys. Shawn Duncan over history has been like, I think you would really like this guy. You should check this guy out.
Hmm.
And by the way, he ends up being right. But it's just, if your trusted sources tell you something and the player understands the connections of that, I think you just put yourself in a different light, because in the end, like, we can only see so much. We try to see players a lot. You talked about seeing guys develop and how we've been fortunate enough to have a track record. We're going to do as much as we can to see you often. But man, it's baseball. We aren't going to see 200 at bats. That's just a
Yeah.
reality. It's an impossibility. And so we need people we trust to go, hey, your gut's right, man. He's really good. If you want to make a roll on him, I'd make a roll on him.
It's so important to have that network. And that's something, like, trying not to be a used car salesman, but yes, the network of our scouting directors, the boots on the ground, the ability to see all these things, to give you those eyes to reaffirm what your gut is telling you. And I think the connections that we have with coaches at Prep Baseball, it is really important, more so like help you guys out, right? You still got to coach. It's not just recruiting. It's not just, you got to probably have speaking engagements. You have to set up academic profiles, whatever that may be. And I think it's important that, hey, they get on the radar. I think a lot of our events, especially, I'm a huge fan of our winter events, because they allow you to sit in your office and kind of start building a list. And from there, where are we going to go this summer? This is my track record. I need to see these guys. And even more so to the kids sending you message, like, I love getting them like, hey, I'm pitching at the NPI. Cool. Like, you may not have been on my list. I'm making it here, but I at least remember you. And no matter what, that kid is going to be in my head. Even if he's not a guy for us, like, hey, he's in my head. Like, I maybe we'll see him. The other thing I'd ask you too, for parents and kids who are doing the emails, like, I always tell kids, send it to the entire staff. Coach Meade is worried about putting out this fire over here, where he's going here. He also has his own family, but the SID, the director of baseball operations, so whatever those guys may be, they may not get quite as many emails as you. But you put a link to a video, he sees it. Wow, this looks pretty good. Hey, Skylar, you might want to check this guy out. He's on field 14. Is that something too that these kids should be doing?
No, there's no doubt. I think you cross all your you cross all your angles there when you do that. But to your point, it may be a deal where they also, if they put like, hey, like, well, the video wasn't bad. Did you guys see that video? Hey, I actually know that. I actually know that high school coach. Let me give him a call. Like, I may not, of course, I don't know everybody, nor does Ben, Adam, Ryan on my staff. Like, no, we don't know everybody. But if we join our forces, which has always been our goal and our prerogative, you may end up being able to get the information. By the way, good or bad, right? Good or bad. And to your point about, like, that's why all these things matter. And that's why playing right, like, it does go both ways. It doesn't mean we all don't make mistakes or deserve second chances, but at the same time, like, we're going to get the information that we need. And, by any means necessary, because if you run a program the way that we do, like, you want to make sure when they get here, you go, I have done everything in this recruiting that there's no stone unturned that I am not aware of. There may be something that someone goes, he's kind of a turd. And you go, well, no, he's not. He just didn't like you, But if you believe that, like, we're good with it. But you don't want something to come up when they're here and be like, did you know about this?
Yeah.
No. And that's a really bad feeling. There's nothing that makes me more sick than that statement. Did you know about this? No. Like, and we could have or should have known of that. And so, shoot, I go back to the Shawn lines. I mean, you talk about what did you learn in recruiting? It all kind of comes full circle. But like, Shawn would be like, you better know the parents' names. You better know the brother and sister's names. You better know the summer team coach, the high school coach. You better know what he's done. Has he ever had an injury? Well, when did he stop playing other sports? Like, all these different things. Those kids would come on a visit, and I felt like I was giving like a dissertation to the head coach, especially as I learned the expectations. Like, well, little Johnny, he's 5'10", but I think he's about to grow. His parents are 6'4". His sister is going to be an All-American and D2 player. And, he's going to change summer teams, but not because of this. It's because they're going to move. he'd be like, hey, I've got enough. But he just wanted to make sure you knew everything that was humanly possible.
I love that. Well, Coach Skylar Meade of Troy, I've stolen enough of your time for today. We could keep going, and we will. So no eavesdropping to any parents out there when we're at NPI talking players, talking hopefully trip to Omaha, maybe a little late start to your recruiting summer. What do you think about that? Maybe no guarantees.
Trust me, I would give up a lot of things for that to be the case. That's for darn. I like seeing you and all the boys, but I'd be all right not seeing you guys for a year if that was the case. That's for darn sure.
You know what? If you're in Omaha, I'm in Omaha. So you know what? I'm going to book it right here. If you're there, I'm there. So until next time, this has been another Recruiting Essentials here at Prep Baseball with Troy's head coach, Skylar Meade. Until next time, we'll see you at the ballpark.